else out there. That does it for us. We'll see you next week.
Good evening, everybody. President Trump and the First Lady, Melania Trump, are being treated this hour for the China virus. Both, we are told, are in good spirits, but remain in isolation, as they will be for at least the next several days. It remains unclear how or when the president was infected, but his positive test result came just hours after his close advisor, Hope Hicks, also tested positive. Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel and Senator Mike Lee also tested positive today. At least 16 of President Trump's cabinet members and family were tested. They all tested negative for the China virus. That includes Vice President Mike Pence, Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett. President Trump begins his treatment and isolation for the China virus just 32 days before the presidential election. Joe Biden and his wife tested negative for the virus today. They were campaigning in New Hampshire and Michigan. The Trump campaign says all of the previously announced events involving the president are in the process of being moved to virtual events or are being temporarily postponed. They add that Vice President Mike Pence will be resuming all of his scheduled campaign events, and we suspect that a few more will be added to his schedule as well. The University of Utah today also said Wednesday's vice presidential debate between the vice president and Senator Harris will go on as planned. And within the last hour, we've learned the president is being treated by White House physician Sean Connolly. The doctor has given the president a single 8-gram dose of an antibody cocktail from Regeneron. The New York-based biotech put out a press release today saying that that cocktail decreases virus levels more quickly in infected but non-hospitalized patients, precisely the position the president and the First Lady are in. The president has also been taking zinc, vitamin D, famotidine, more commonly sold as Pepcid, melatonin, and a daily aspirin. Dr. Connolly says the president remains fatigued, but in good spirits. The First Lady remains asymptomatic, experiencing only a mild cough and a headache. Our first guest tonight is here to give us a further understanding of what the president and the First Lady are going through now. She's a pulmonologist at NYU Langone Hospital. And joining us tonight, Dr. Kanta Ahmed. Doctor, it is great to have you with us. And a sense first, if you will, because we have all been told anyone in their 70s is a prime target for this virus. Your assessment of the president as both patient and victim of this virus.
So first of all, it's very important to say I am not treating the president. He's not my patient. I don't have access to his medical records. So all I can say is what I know from the public is we are concerned he's tested positive. He's tested every day, so we know exactly when he became infected. And we are worried about two things with the president. Certainly he's in his 70s, and we know that as we become older, the virus does pose more of a risk. And we also know from the letters that his doctors have published earlier in May that he's 6'3" and he weighs 244 pounds, which puts him just into the category of class 1 obesity. And these two things are risk factors. On the positive side, the president has a very high functional status. We know from his records that he normally takes just some cholesterol medicines and some aspirin. So overall, he is very healthy, but those are risk factors that could change the odds for him. And above all, he's our president. He has enormous responsibility nationally and internationally, and he's at a critical time in the election. So we're all praying for his speedy recovery, and most of all, we wish the very best to his doctors and advisors who are really facing some really tough decisions.
The antibody cocktail, which they are now administering to the president, it is, give us a sense of what it does, what its intended effect is.
So I'm afraid I was in transit, so I couldn't hear what the cocktail is that you're referring to. Just tell me quickly what that is, please.
it's the Regeneron antibody cocktail, as they it's a treatment, obviously, for the virus. I'm unfamiliar with it too, and I had no idea there. Yeah, and it has just emerged from trials. So the president is an early, if you will, adopter.
Right. So what I would say is I have not used that medication. I'm not familiar with it, but we do know from the various trials that have come out now that we're 10 months into the pandemic that the one thing that makes a huge impact is augmenting the patient's immune response and using immunomodulation. The most famous of those medications are steroids that we know and are used in people who are much more seriously ill than what the president is being described. And immunomodulation tames and channels some of the immune response to the virus. I think that medication that they may be using is probably something to be used in exceptional circumstances because of his enormous responsibilities and because they know really day one when he's infected. We know there are many benefits to reducing the viral burden very early on in the disease process. Most of us that are asymptomatic don't even know that we're infected, so wouldn't be having access to that medication. But I'm sure that's sensible. I'm not familiar with the details of the agent, but can quickly become so.
The president, the first lady, obviously are showing somewhat different symptoms. She is basically asymptomatic, having only a mild cough, and the president being described as fatigued. Your thoughts about that? Is that pretty much what you would expect?
Yes, often. I mean, don't forget, he was tested and we heard that he was positive at 1:10 in the morning. He may have had a period of asymptomatic infection before then and not had any symptoms. It is unsurprising that he's fatigued, but also he keeps an incredibly rigorous schedule. So that's quite a non-specific symptom, but I would expect that. And with respect, and let's not forget, we want our First Lady to become fully recovered as well. We're very much praying for her too. A cough and a headache is symptoms. So she is not asymptomatic, as somebody earlier mentioned. But these are very common. Sometimes people will develop fever, but not everybody that is acutely infected mounts a fever. Some patients are without fever and still acutely infected. And sometimes we see people with tummy upsets, a little bit of diarrhea, disagreeable, loss of taste. All of those we're very familiar with. And I can be very confident that the physicians that are looking after the president are watching for all of these things. Much more important to me, and it may have been part of the decision making, is how the president and the first lady are oxygenating, what their pulse ox is reading, what their blood gas is reading, what their x-rays and chest CTs are like. And I feel confident that they will have been completely studied in great detail and the best decisions are being made for them. We also want to add, we're now in October. The virus that's infecting them has changed in behavior than the virus that infected my critically ill patients in March and April. So this is going to show resolution. Both the president and his wife are very likely to get better without needing any major or aggressive interventions that we're all fearful of and we don't really want to speak about. So I'm very optimistic and I'm very hopeful, and I want the nation to be the same.
Well, I think most of us are certainly optimistic because this president is without question a man of great energy and drive, and right now I would say that he looks like he's going to be, my guess is, receiving the best care in the world. So the combination, I think, is on the side of America. Doctor, we appreciate your time and your explanation. Kanta Ahmed, thank you so much. Come back soon. President Trump's positive China virus test has brought a host of well wishes, of course, from Americans and leaders around the world. And while the decent people of the world hope the president and his wife recover quickly, as do we all, many on the left have shown why they are now called the party of hate. In a now deleted tweet, former Barack Obama staffer and Hillary Clinton spokeswoman Zahra Rahim said, "I hope he dies." And the New York Times suggested that President Trump might not be, quote, able to remain on the ballot at all and may have to concede to Joe Biden. The Lou Dobbs Tonight Word of the Day best describes the left's remarks today, at least in part, hyperbolic. Language or action that exaggerates, overstates the truth. The other word that we would offer up is indecent. Up next, President Trump once again condemns white supremacists. He's been doing it for years now. Why is the left so interested in ignoring his record of denouncing white supremacists? We'll take that up in just a few moments with the founder of the National Blexit Movement, Candace Owens. And a thank you to everyone who's made my new book a national bestseller. And you can pick up the book, The Trump Century, How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever, available at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and LouDobbsShop.com. LouDobbsShop.com. The Trump Century. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Breaking news now. A George W. Bush judge has sided with the Chamber of Commerce against the American worker. They've blocked President Trump's freeze on several types of work visas for foreign workers. This is the latest overreach by a very active federal judiciary this week. Federal judges blocking the president's ban of TikTok. That ban based on the president's national security authorities, which a district court judge overruled. The ruling allowed 9,000 more visa lottery winners, and an Obama judge expanded mail-in voting in Montana, claiming that widespread voter fraud is fiction. The great American comeback in the economy goes on. The Labor Department today reporting 661,000 jobs were created in September. Under President Trump's leadership, more than half of the 22 million jobs lost particularly in the peak months of March and April, have been replaced. The unemployment rate also showing signs of strong recovery. The unemployment rate dropping below 8%, down to 7.9%, the same level as in October of 2012 when President Trump was reelected. President Trump last night once again condemning white supremacists and wondering why the national left-wing media isn't asking about Joe Biden and Antifa.
I have to say, I've said it many times, and let me be clear again, I condemn the KKK. I condemn all white supremacists. I condemn the Proud Boys. I don't know much about the Proud Boys, almost nothing, but I condemn that. But he should condemn also Antifa. Antifa is a horrible group of people. They kill people. What they do to people, and they're causing insurrection, they're causing riots. He doesn't want to do that, but the press doesn't go after him, and that's a really bad group of people. But I condemn them, and if I say it 100 times, it won't be enough because it's fake news.
Well, joining us tonight, founder of the Blexit Foundation, Candace Owens. She's also the best-selling author of the New York Times bestseller, Blackout: How Black America Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democrat Plantation. Candace, great to have you with us, and thanks for being here. Let's start with what is a strange, almost psychosis on the part of the left-wing media, and that is to demand a president continue to denounce hate groups as he's done for more than 4 years now as a candidate and as a president. Your thoughts?
Stranger still is the fact that we have so many hate groups running amok that are actually burning and looting America. And they are not demanding, as the president mentioned, for Joe Biden to denounce those groups. People across America have no idea who the Proud Boys are. Everybody knows exactly who Antifa is. I've had my own confrontations with Antifa, violent confrontations where they stalked me out of a restaurant, threw eggs at me, threw water at me. So what you're seeing here is, first and foremost, deja vu. 2016 election strategy from the Democrats to just continually and repeatedly try to smear and libel him as a white supremacist with absolutely zero proof, less proof in 2020 after he's had an outstanding time in office approaching all of the issues that Black Americans have been facing. You know, he just rolled out his platinum plan for Black America. You know, he went after all the things that were wrong with the crime bill of 94 and reversed them with criminal justice reform. So it's bizarre to me that they're running this play again and expecting different results when America, I believe, is much more aware of the fact that this is a leftist tactic and it's not going to stick.
And it is curious that the left-wing media continues to try to bully this president. And I use the word advisedly because they're backed up by some of the biggest corporations in America. This business of fake news, the president has done a great service to the nation in pointing out that these outlets are fake and fraudulent and vicious. But the left unsaid too often is the relationship they have to their owners, whether it be Amazon's Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post, whether it be Comcast and NBC, whether it be AT&T and CNN or Walt Disney. You know, the funny little creatures they hardly are in harmony with the viciousness of CNN. It is, and ABC News. It's really remarkable how few people are paying attention to the ugliness of corporate America and the amazing power they hold over our major corporate media and the lengths they're going to intimidate this president, to block him, subvert him, and even overthrow him.
You are exactly right. And what's really remarkable about the corporations getting behind these movements, the NBA even painting the ground Black Lives Matter, is they're encouraging people to give money to an organization. There has still not been any clarity regarding where the money goes, the billions of dollars that Black Lives Matter has raised using the faces of dead Black people. Where does the money go? There have been no schools that have been built. There is no Black Lives Matter campus. There is no Black Lives Matter tower. There's no Black Lives Matter company or structure that we could take a look at. So this is also, I mean, a remarkably interesting situation in terms of the fact that they've raised so much money and the money is not going to Black Americans. So what I always say is these corporations, we're really seeing them use Black Americans, and we don't know to further what cause. In my personal opinion, this is about gaining political power by any means necessary. And race has always been an issue in America that they feel that they can manipulate to the best of their ability to garner that power.
Black Lives Matter. It was stunning to hear the vice president ape a very disturbed and, I think misplaced FBI director in saying that Black Lives Matter is not an organization when clearly it is. And it is a national organization. In part, it's international, not much of an international presence, but enough to make it international. I think the damning thing here is that this vice president in saying that, and Christopher Wray in saying that, means we're not going to have an investigation of Black Lives Matter, which we know has been the foundation and the driving force behind so many street riots, vicious vandalism, and arson in many cities, Democrat-run cities across the country. Your thoughts about the need for that investigation and why it's not taking place?
Correct. And I'll add to that by saying calling Antifa an idea. It wasn't an idea that chased me out of that restaurant on a Monday morning and threw eggs and water at me. And when you're talking about them failing to acknowledge that this is an organized cell of terror, domestic terrorists in our country, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, what they're really doing is trying to accept everything that they're doing. And here's the most important part, Lou. Whose neighborhoods are they rioting and looting and burning down? Black Americans. That is the irony. They go into Black American neighborhoods, they take away Black American jobs, Black American industries, and they do it all in the name of somehow saying that they're fighting against racism. So yes, I think what they're doing is they're setting the stage because they view, in my opinion, for Democrats, Antifa is what Ku Klux Klan was, back during the civil rights era. This is their terror arm, right? They expect them to go out on the streets and terrorize individuals while they stand behind in suits and pretend that they don't know that it's going on, and they know perfectly well what is going on. And
Blackout, your new best-selling book, Is it your judgment now that we're going to see a significant shift in Black Americans moving from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party for this election?
For this election and beyond. And I'll tell you what, I think the Democrats know that. What we're seeing today, my husband always says with the left, they seem like they're going so crazy. But what it really is the last squeals of a dying animal. They know that we're close. They know that Black Americans are waking up. So they're doing all that they can to hold on to power by creating all of this distrust and confusion and anger and socioeconomic wars inside of the country because they're losing their grip and power and control. And this president has delivered all of the promises that he promised back in 2016. I have predicted for the last 3 years we're going to see 20 points in 2020, and I think we're still going to be on target for that in a few weeks when Americans head to the polls.
Candace, great to have you with us. Congratulations on your new book. Congratulations on your bestseller. As always, Candace Owens, thanks for being with us. Well, breaking news now. President Trump, we have just learned, will be going this evening to Walter Reed Medical Center. We don't have any guidance as to when he will be leaving the White House. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany just released this statement. President Trump remains in good spirits, has mild symptoms, and has been working throughout the day out of an abundance of caution. And at the recommendation of his physician and medical experts, the president will be working from the presidential offices at Walter Reed for the next few days. President Trump appreciates the outpouring of support for both himself and the First Lady. Coming up next, California's radical Dem governor making it more difficult for counties to reopen their economies. California being California. We take that up and more after the break with author Alex Berenson. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Well, as we reported in the previous segment, the president is expected to go to Walter Reed Hospital out of an abundance of caution, where he'll be working for the next several days, according to Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. And as you see there, Marine One is, it appears to be on standby just outside the White House, ready to take the president to Walter Reed in Bethesda, Maryland. And we will be going back to that very picture as soon as we see any kind of movement, of course, and the emergence of the president. The Lou Dobbs Tonight quotation of the day is from my book, The Trump Century, about China. In it, I write, quote, China authored the Wuhan virus, whether accidentally or intentionally, and spread it to an unsuspecting world instead of warning anyone. China created the worst crisis for the United States since World War II and is responsible for the deadliest attack on the United States in its history. Joining us tonight to take all of this up and more, Alex Berenson, former New York Times reporter. He is the author of Unreported Truths about COVID-19 and lockdowns. And Alex, it's great to have you with us. We appreciate you being with us tonight. I want to begin, if I may, with seeing what, and I should say, we recommend your book highly. So I do want to start with the president, get your thoughts. I'll give you an opportunity to share those with us tonight before we go on into the issue of the pandemic.
Sure. Look, the president is 74 years old. He's somewhat overweight. Those are unfortunately risk factors for for serious complications from the coronavirus. The odds are very much that he will, he'll have a mild or moderate course of illness, that he won't get very sick, that he certainly won't need to be ventilated, that he won't die. The odds are very strongly in his favor. But the fact that he is sick and he is of an age, where the virus can cause those complications, rarely, but it can, is something we all need to be aware of. The fact that he's going to the hospital, it's sort of hard to know exactly how to read that. The press secretary is saying an abundance of caution. I would think that given the politics around this, he wouldn't go to the hospital unless his physicians told him it was necessary. But, from the outside, it's hard to know. The experience of Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of England, he was hospitalized for a number of days, and he was actually transferred to the intensive care unit, and ultimately he recovered, and he's been out of the hospital and fine for the last 6 months. But there were a few days when he was in the ICU, and he has said that there was a chance that he would need to be ventilated, although he was not. Ventilation is a pretty serious step, and we should all hope it doesn't reach that point. I mean, I think whatever your politics are, you're pro-Trump, you're anti-Trump, we should all hope that the president has a mild course here, because it's bad for the country if he becomes seriously ill.
Yeah, I think this nation is still, its people are still decent enough that they can hope for the best for this president, pray for the best for this president. Period. Without much more embroidery than that. That seems to me to be all that would be required, to pray for the man and his quick recovery. And that, of course,
but Lou, let's be honest. As there's a lot of people who really dislike.
I would like, if I may.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was saying, there's a lot of people who really dislike Donald Trump, and you didn't have to look far on Twitter to find sort of expressions of pleasure today that he was sick. And what I'm saying to those people is, first of all, that's not a very humane way to behave. But second of all, even if you hate Donald Trump, it's not good for the United States and the world to have him be sick. So at least look at it that way, even if you don't have the humanity to say, he's a person and I hope he recovers.
Yeah. I don't think there's a chance in the world, Alex, that your remarks, as warm and well-intended as they are and correct, will influence in any way the left in this country. It has proved to be so ignorant, so vile, that they play politics with the national emergency of the China virus itself. They ignore reality. They distort reality. And they are trying to upend this country as they have tried to upend this president and his presidency. So I salute you for your thoughts and your care, but I think we have to accept the reality. The idea that the Democrats right now, following your point, are demanding that Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, stop the Barrett hearings for the new justice because of the concerns for the health of all of the august senators who behaved in the most indecent ways in the previous Kavanaugh justice hearings. Your thoughts on that as we wrap up? We got about a minute.
Sure. I mean, that's not really, I try to stick to talking about the coronavirus and not so much the politics around it. I would leave you with one thought, which is it's the president's going to be criticized for not wearing a mask. He's been criticized for not wearing a mask. It's really important to talk about the science here. There is no evidence that a non-N95 mask would have protected him at all. Now, there's limited to no evidence that it might have protected the people around him, although the evidence is very weak on that. But there's no evidence that wearing the kind of mask that most people wear most of the time would have made any difference to his becoming sick or not. And I just think it's important to emphasize that point.
No, and I'm glad you did. It's also, I guess, we're back to where we began. I have to say, right you are. The left won't give a damn. Alex Berenson, thanks for being with us. We appreciate it. Coming up next, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. We take up the deep state's latest assault on the republic. We'll be right back.